Hey y'all, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am coming to you with the 24 books that I want to read in 2024. I think this seems like a really long list. I definitely don't think I'll get around to reading everything on this list, but I tried to vary it. I tried to mix up genres, and I think there are a lot of books here that I'm really excited to get into, and I'm excited to get into soon. So that's my big hope, is to be inspired to go on and dive into this list almost immediately. I think I have all 24 here, but there's a little voice in the back of my head that keeps saying I am forgetting something, so I'm concerned. Maybe there is something that I didn't bring down or that I don't have written down somewhere, but I think all 24 are here. First, I want to start with a few of the books that I don't have physically because I think I'm in danger of forgetting them. So I do have a handful of new releases that I would like to talk about here. These are the books that I actually think I'm really going to get to. I didn't want to do an entire anticipated releases video because I only have a few that I'm really excited about. And I have 3 that I think I am for sure going to get to. So I wanted to put them on this list. And the first of these is my most anticipated release of the entire year. I'm sure it's a lot of people's, and that is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. And I would be interested in this book even if it wasn't written by Leigh. Leigh Bardugo is one of my favorite authors, but this is historical fiction fantasy, and it is set in Spain during the Inquisition. Say no more. I'm there. I'm really interested in it. And I think it's also a standalone, which is kind of unique for her, but I am really intrigued by this one, and the cover is beautiful. It's easily the most beautiful cover of the year. I am really pumped about this, and for sure, I'm going to get to it almost immediately. Another anticipated release for me is Map of the Otherlands, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, which is the sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And while I didn't necessarily love the Encyclopedia of Fairies the way a lot of people did, I did really enjoy it, and I really appreciated the vibe that Emily Wilde had. And so I think that book kind of opened the door for me a little bit for cozy fantasy. That is not a genre that I have ever thought I would really get into, but I really enjoyed Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I'm even more excited by the prospect of where the series could go. So I definitely wanted to put this on the list because I am really pumped about it. It's coming out in a couple of weeks, and I definitely plan on reading it this month. The last of my anticipated releases, the last that I am sure I'm definitely going to read this year, that I'm going to get around to, is Funny Story by Emily Henry, and I feel like a lot of people will be talking about this book this year. I really enjoy Emily Henry's adult romances. In fact, she's really the only adult contemporary romance author that I have found that I'm vaguely interested in. I have really thoroughly enjoyed most everything I've read from her. I've only had one disappointment from her. And so I'm really excited about this one, though the tagline and the setup for this story is not one that gets me as excited as some of her other books did. So I'll be intrigued by this one. I think that it's going to work well for me because I really just like the way that she writes, and I definitely feel like it's one that I'm going to get around to this year. So I'm really excited about this, but of the 3 anticipated releases, this is the one I'm the most nervous about, quite frankly. I also have as one of my goals this year to read around the world and to make a concerted effort to read more translated works. And so I was looking around at my physical TBR, my eTBR, but also my audiobook selection to find some books from different countries that I have never read from before. And so one of these is a book that I'm also a little bit skeptical of. So if you have read this, please do let me know your thoughts on this one down below. That's Hunger by Knut Hamsun. This is a Norwegian modern classic, I think. It came out in the early 1900s. And I am really interested in this because a lot of people say this is a great book to read during the wintertime. It's also really short, so I thought that would be a great way to fit something in. The reason I'm skeptical is that people say this is really bleak, and it's really dark, and it's really depressing. And I don't know when I am ever in that mood, so this is one that I'm skeptical of, but since it is so short, and because it is apparently the only book from Norway that I have on any of my TBRs, this is definitely one I feel like has to be a high priority. I'm excited about it because sometimes melancholy can work very well for me, but something that is outright sad and just designed to depress you, that worries me a little bit. But this is one that's pretty high on my yearly TBR. We also have Chlorine by Jade Song, which is a book that I really wish that I had gotten to in 2023. This was one of my most anticipated releases of 2023, and the reviews that I have seen for this have been so mixed, but also so interesting that I am really excited to see how I personally feel about this book. This is a literary horror, which is one of my favorite genres, and it's about a girl who is on the swim team, and she firmly believes that she is turning into a mermaid. So I am really pumped about this one. It's also really short. I think this is going to be a year where I prioritize shorter reads, which is kind of unusual for me, but I think I'm going to really, really enjoy this one. A lot of people have talked up the writing style here, so I'm very excited about Chlorine. We then have The Door by Magda Szabo. This is another one that is for my Around the World challenge, and I also have this on audiobook. And I'm really interested in this one because I believe I heard Jen from Insert Literary Pun here talk this up a couple of years ago. I think this was one of her favorite books, maybe in 2022. So I am really excited to get into this one. Again, I've heard this is kind of melancholy, but I think that will work very, very well for me. I believe this is set kind of at a boarding school, or it has to do with female friendship. And I feel like that's a theme that has really stuck out to me in recent years and has been something that I have been really looking for in a lot of books. And I've been really enjoying it when I find it. So I think this book is going to tick a lot of marks for me personally. I'm really excited to get into this one. This might be one of the ones that I start after filming this video. I'm really, really excited about The Door. We also have Earthlings, and this is a book that I have had on my Kindle for over a year now. I picked it up on a Kindle Daily Deal, and this is apparently just an incredibly weird book, and there are a lot of people who have read this who really hated it, and there are a lot of people who read this who really, really loved it, and I am excited to see where I fall. I love a good unhinged woman story, or woman versus the void, and that's basically what this book is. This woman truly believes she is from outer space and that she is not from Earth. And so I'm interested to see how this goes for me. I really enjoy this subgenre, and I get a lot out of it thematically because I think a lot of these books really make you think, and they make you start thinking about your own experiences. And so I hope that's the case here. This is translated from the Japanese, I believe, so this will also work really well for my Around the World project. I'm excited about this one, and I hope that I really like it, but some of the reviews I've heard are starting to make me question things. I feel like a lot of people have been picking this up recently, and they haven't been enjoying it. So now I'm a little bit skeptical, but I personally think this is going to work really, really well for me. The last of the books that I don't own physically is actually a book that I've purchased, but I have been waiting to come in the mail for a really long time now, and that's The Buccaneers by Edith Wharton. And this is here essentially because I have just binged Apple TV's recent Buccaneers adaptation. And, you know, on the one hand, I really loved it. On the other, I was really irritated by a lot of aspects of it, especially certain characters. So I don't know that reading the book will make me feel any better towards those characters, and it actually makes me wonder if the book reading experience will be that great if the characters are that similar to the TV show. But I feel like Apple TV probably made some pretty significant changes to the original, and I was so engaged with the show. I had so many questions about the time period and the idea behind it. I just automatically wanted to pick up the book. And so this book is about a bunch of girls here in America in the late 1800s, and they are from new money. And so, of course, they get no respect from the so-called old money of New York society. And so they decide to go to England and find husbands there among the lords who are down on their luck with money, but they have the title and they have the old money name. And so that is something that actually historically happened, and I'm really interested to see it in literature, especially from somebody who kind of lived it. Edith Wharton was a really big name in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and she was a member of the Jones family. If you've heard of Keeping Up with the Joneses, that's who that was kind of inspired by. And so I'm interested to see kind of the Gilded Age perspective, especially from her point of view. I'm excited about this. I think I'm really going to enjoy it. I think I'm going to enjoy her writing because I've read one thing by Edith Wharton, and while I didn't like the plot at all, I did think her writing was quite beautiful. So this is one I'm very excited about. I misspoke. There is one other book that I have on Kindle that I'm really excited about and I wanted to put on my 24 and 24, and that is Brideshead Revisited. And this is a book that haunts me at night. I really don't know why I've waited around on this one because everything about it seems designed for me. There's something kind of dark academia or at least campus novel about it. In fact, it is a book that I have started many times, and for some odd reason, I never carry on with it. It doesn't seem like I've ever DNF'd it because I didn't like it or I wasn't getting on with it. So I really do want to just commit to this one and try to get through it. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe that's really why I keep putting it down, why I've never finished it. But I still think there's something about it thematically that should work really, really well for me, especially given the books that I know that I love. I feel like Brideshead Revisited really fits in among them. So I'm really intrigued by this. This is a high priority for me this year. This is one of the books I feel like has been on my TBR the longest, and possibly is one of the books that I have owned the longest without finishing. So I would really like to get to this year. This is a major priority for me. We can finally get into the physical books that I have. And one of these, I feel like this is kind of wild for me, but I have The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. And I picked this up basically because I'm really in my unhinged woman era. I love, love, love everything that I am reading in that kind of subgenre. And this is highly recommended. Every time you look up kind of unhinged women recommendations, this is always one that is listed, but it always comes with the caveat that it's a really strange book, and it's also a really gross book apparently. So this is literary horror also, and it's also translated, so I'm really excited. I feel like I have a good balance of translated works on this list, and I personally think I'm going to really love it. I wouldn't have put it on this list if I didn't think that, but the one thing that does make me skeptical is not necessarily the subject matter. It's the fact that this is a series of short stories, and I am 100% not a short story girl. So I am excited. I'm tentatively excited, but I'm going to try to temper my expectations because I understand the format might not work for me. Next, we have The Guest by Emma Cline. This has been a very Marmite book in 2023. I have seen some people put this as one of their best books of the year. I have seen some people put this as one of their worst books of the year. It seems like you either love it or hate it. I am hoping because I had a really positive experience with Emma Cline with the girls, I'm set up to really enjoy this, but this is also kind of an unhinged woman, I think. And this is all about a woman who has essentially been a guest in other people's lives, essentially for her entire life. And so I think this follows kind of her descent into madness as she does some really, really crazy and questionable things. And so I'm really excited about it. I really like Emma Cline's writing. I think it's going to be very chaotic, but it's also going to be very pacey. I'm really excited about it. I'm sorry, it's also just really the most beautiful book ever because this green is incredible. Next, we have The Garden of the Finzi Continis, which is my Italian pick for the year. So this is another translated work. I'm really excited about this. And this is about Italy during World War II. And I think it is specifically about how they are trying to hide the Jewish population in this small town. And frankly, it has always come highly recommended to me by my Italian subscribers. So I feel really positively about this one. I think I'm really going to enjoy it. This is book 3 in a series of 4. And I wound up getting out from the library the other day an audiobook of all 4 of these. So I don't necessarily know if I'm going to say that I want to read the entire series, but this book is definitely the highest priority, so maybe I'll listen to it on audiobook, but I think I'm really going to enjoy it. It would be great if I wound up reading the entire quartet because I think it'll be an interesting experience, but I don't think the books are connected in any way, so I think this can stand on its own. But this is always talked up as one of the best Italian books of all time, so I'm really, really excited. Yes, let's be cliche. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This is a book that I DNF'd earlier in 2023, and it wasn't because I wasn't feeling the book. I think I just wasn't in the mood for it. And so now I have read a 5-star read from Otessa Moshfegh. I loved Eileen so much. I feel like I'm primed to read this, and I feel like I'm now ready to engage with it. I'm ready to understand what it's all about. I'm really excited. I love when books have a lot of hype because I kind of enjoy getting in on the conversation with a bunch of people. I love when everyone's reading the same thing. And I feel like whether you hated or loved this book, it's always been an interesting conversation piece here on BookTube. And I want to contribute to the conversation. So I personally hope that I really love this. I think that I'm going to. And I'm really excited to get into this. This is one of my highest hopes for the year, and this might be kind of a 5-star prediction from me. I feel like that's giving it very high praise early on and is possibly setting myself up for failure, but I really do feel like I might give this 5 stars. Another book that has gotten quite a bit of hype recently has been Divine Rivals, and this is also a book that I DNF'd in 2023. And the reason I DNF'd this one is that it was really putting me in a bad mood. I think it really made me feel really sad and depressed. There was something very claustrophobic about the writing and about kind of just the vibe of the plot that made me feel really sad. And I personally did not like that. So I'm hoping that was just a me problem and that's not necessarily what the book is. But given how well beloved this book has become, I feel like it must have been me. So I'm definitely going to come back to this one. I'm really excited now that the second book has come out and people are talking about it and people are posting their vlogs of the second book. I'm really excited to get into this one, and I've always liked Rebecca Ross. She's been one of my favorite authors for a very long time because I think she's very unique and I think she's interested in doing something new and fresh all the time in the world of fantasy, and she's always been great at writing romance. So I feel like everyone can't be wrong. I can't be the odd man out here. So this is one that I'm going to say is a very high priority for me going into the new year. I want to know what everyone is talking about, and I feel sure I'm going to love it. Next up, we have Marie Antoinette by Stefan Zweig. This is a biography of Marie Antoinette that was written in the mid-1900s, I think, maybe early 1900s by an Austrian author. And so I've always been really excited about this because Marie Antoinette was Austrian, and I would love to read a biography that was written by someone who was also Austrian. I feel like her Austrian heritage is sometimes glossed over or is not talked about to the degree that I would like. So I'm really, really pumped about this one. This was a Christmas gift from my friend Svea, so thank you again to Svea. I'm excited to get into this because I have read A Chess Story by Stefan Zweig, and he has absolutely beautiful prose. And I feel like that's going to be present in his nonfiction, at least I hope it will be. I think this is my only nonfiction on the list. I'm really excited about this, and I think I'm really going to enjoy it. I hope I do because he definitely has a very interesting backlist in terms of historical nonfiction. I know he wrote a biography of Mary Queen of Scots as well, so I hope that I really enjoy his writing because I think there are a lot of books in his backlist that I would be incredibly interested in. Let's talk about the 7-Year Slip. This is the only romance other than Funny Story that's going to appear here, I think. And it's because I feel like this will work really well for me. I feel like the tropes are going to work well for me. And this is about an apartment where you can kind of slip 7 years into the past. You can essentially time travel 7 years forward or 7 years into the past in this apartment. And so the main characters are falling in love, but they technically live 7 years apart from each other. And everyone has loved this year. I have heard nonstop good things about this. And so I really want to find another contemporary romance author that hits for me in the same way as Emily Henry. I think Ashley Poston might be that because I'm also intrigued by the Dead Romantics. And I like the idea of there being something just a little bit speculative in the story. If you've read this, let me know your feelings on it down below. I feel like I'm still a baby. I'm still in my baby romance era, and I'm still discovering quite a bit. There's a lot that I have to learn. So if you have read this, let me know your feelings on it down below. Next, we have Boy Parts by Eliza Clark, continuing my Unhinged Women Fest. I am so excited about this because I read Penance by Eliza Clark in 2023 and I absolutely loved it. I loved her style of writing, and it really encouraged me to go back to Boy Parts. This is about a woman that I think is a photographer, and she has a very interesting relationship with her male clients. I think it's very unhinged, apparently, and I'm excited to get into this one. This is definitely a high priority for me and is the book that I think I might start the soonest. So I'm really excited about this. I'm also really excited that it's so short because I think I'll be able to move through it really quickly. And I just love the way Eliza Clark writes. I think she's very thought-provoking and she's very introspective, and I expect this to be no exception. So I am really, really pumped about Boy Parts. Yes, Is this on every book list ever that I make? I know it is, but this is going to be the year that I finish the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, but I feel like I have to reread this one. This can stand in for any of the books in the trilogy, so I'm really excited. I know I'm going to love it, so I don't know why I keep putting this off. I know that I am going to just absolutely love every inch of this series, and so I guess in some ways I'm kind of holding off on it for a time that I feel like I'm going into a book slump. I think these books will definitely rescue me from a book slump, but I also want to read them kind of unobstructed, one right after the other. So this is definitely a very high priority. Honestly, the top priority of all of those that I have named today, including my anticipated releases. This series has been one that has appeared on multiple different TBRs, and I am constantly feeling the pressure to read it and finish it, so I definitely need to get around to this. Going back to translated works from Germany, we have Berlin Alexanderplatz, which has been on my TBR for a very long time, and I have always been so excited by. I am really, really excited to get into this, and it's so funny because I know a lot of my German subscribers have told me that they had to read this book in school and they were bored, so hopefully I don't have that experience, but I think I'm personally going to get on with it. I have really been enjoying German literature over the past couple of years, especially 20th century German literature, so I am intrigued by this. I know next to nothing of what it's about, and I want to keep it that way. I love when things are set in Berlin. Berlin is one of my favorite cities to see books or films set in. I love when films and television shows are set in Berlin. It's just incredible to me. I must be fascinated by it. That must be the next place I need to go. So I'm really excited by this one, but it's very long and apparently it's fairly dense. So we'll see. This is probably going to be one that I stretch out over a couple of months, but we'll see. Hopefully I become so obsessed with it, I just want to read it in one go. I Who Have Never Known Men, once again, translated book from Belgium. I'm really proud of myself. I feel like I've included a lot on this list. But this is a book that frankly was not on my radar until this year. And when I looked it up and I discovered that it was published back in the 90s, I was really shocked because I thought for sure this must be a newer release. This must be a book that was released in the past few years because I have heard it recommended almost nonstop in 2023. Specifically, Emily Fox recommended it, I think time and time again, and that really piqued my interest. And then recently, Shelley from Shelley Swearingen read it because Emily recommended it, and she also really, really enjoyed it. So this is about women that have been living underground essentially in a cage, and their only interaction with men has been like when the men come down to bring them food. And we're following the perspective of the youngest member of this group of women who literally does not remember life when she wasn't with them. I'm really, really intrigued by this. I know it's going to be bleak and I know that it's going to be kind of heavy, but I'm interested in reading more dystopian fiction this year, and I think this will be a great one to get me into it. The Big Daddy of the Year, the book that is the biggest commitment, that I think is going to take the most out of me, that's definitely going to be the hardest read of the year, is The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. I picked up a copy of this also on audiobook, so I feel like I'm finally primed to read this. This has been sitting on my TBR for a couple of years now, and I think it's finally time. And because I have the audiobook, I think I can do some tandem or immersive reading and really, really get into this. I know this is dense, and I know it's philosophical, and I know it's very strange, but I feel like I have enjoyed those elements elsewhere. I think I'm set up to enjoy this because I know I like Thomas Mann's writing. I am really excited about this, but I am very intimidated. I don't think I would be as intimidated if I hadn't heard so many people say this is one of the densest books they've ever read, and also that it was just really, really hard to get through. So I hope that I have a fun experience with it and that I can enjoy the experience of immersive reading. 100%, I'm definitely going to annotate this book. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I definitely plan on taking my time with it. This is not a book that I'm going to be able to read within a week. So I think if I relax with it and I accept the fact that it's going to take me a little while to get through, I can really enjoy the reading experience. So this is my big challenge book of the year. I have two Olivia Blakes that I could put on this list, but I decided to go with Masters of Death because I think this is the more complex one. I also have one for my enemy, but Masters of Death is a really interesting book, and I have seen a lot of people talk about just how confusingly written it is, and that's one of the things about Olivia Blake that I kind of like. I kind of like how confusing and introspective her writing is, but I can also see why that wouldn't really work for a certain reader. And I think this one stands out as one of her most complex novels. So I'm excited to carry on with my journey with Olivia Blake because last year one of her books wound up as one of my favorites of the year. I DNF'd another of her books. I mean, it was just a crazy year, frankly. And so she's an author that I'm really intrigued by, that I think I could really, really love, but I just don't know. I don't know if I've given her enough of a chance. So this book is going to be one of the defining factors for me. I hope that I really enjoy it because just look at the illustrations inside. It's just absolutely gorgeous, the end papers. Look. Stunning, stunning, stunning. Going Kind of Rogue, a book that I 100% will not read straight through and will probably take me a very, very long time to read. I actually don't know why I wanted to include it in this video because now that I think about it, this is just probably not going to be achieved. But I have Franz Kafka's Diaries. I'm kind of in love with Franz Kafka because I've recently been reading his letters to Milena. I'm genuinely obsessed with him. And the funny thing is, I'm far more interested in him as a person than I am in his work. So this is going to be an interesting experience because I'm really interested in seeing what he had to write about his life personally, his letters and stuff like that, but I'm not really that interested in visiting any of his fiction. I think I'm going to really enjoy his diaries if my experience with his letters to Milena is any indication. I am going to absolutely love this. So I'm excited by this, but again, I feel like it's not really an appropriate book to have put on this list because I'm not going to sit and read it straight through. And I also think it's just going to be a book that I read here and there. So you never know, maybe I'll get really invested in it and want to finish it. But diaries are always an interesting reading experience because there's always something there that you just think is needless or is kind of boring, parts where it really drags because you're just reading about someone's daily life. But I feel like because Franz Kafka was so incredibly philosophical and poetic, his diaries are going to have a little bit more than the average. So I'm really excited about this. I hope that I really enjoy it. Last but not least, we are finally at the end of my stack of 24 in 2024. That's going to be Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. This is another book that's kind of standing in for an entire trilogy because I just need to finish this out. In fact, I had a dream the other day that I was rereading all of Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter Chronicles and I was having the time of my life. And when I woke up, I thought I should reread those. And then it occurred to me that there is an entire trilogy set in the world that I have yet to touch. So this is the latest series. It is set in Edwardian London. And I know I'm going to love it because my favorite characters of hers were from her Victorian London series, and this is following their children. So I know I'm going to really, really love this. I read the first book in this trilogy when it came out, and it's been so long. I'm telling you, rereading it will be like reading it for the first time. So this is another high priority for me in terms of series. I would like to finish a couple of series this year. This trilogy and the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy are the ones that are at the top of my list. I hope that was all 24 books that I intended to talk about, but you never know. I feel like I am missing something. I really, truly do. But I would love to know down below if you have read any of these. I would love to know what you thought of them. And I would love to know if you have any books that you really want to get to in 2024. But that's going to be all for me today. I hope you're all having a great week. Happy reading. Goodbye.